Or life is absence of career, or life is happenstance. I blundered into the movie industry because of chance. I put on a play of Dylan Thomas's, and it is Adventures in the Skin Trade. We star David Hemmings, and two people wander in, Lester Persky, who's a film magnate, and Antonioni. Antonioni whips Hemmings away from his greatest performance as the young Dylan and puts him into Blow Up. Persky engages me on doing my first film script of Adventures in the Skin Trade. There's no career in life. People wander in, things happen, you find yourself in the film business. I was brought up by two old Tudor kings. One was Henry VI, one was Henry VIII. The other component was genetic luck. And I happened to get, as a very poor boy, a scholarship to Eton at the age of 13 till 18, was possibly at that time the best education in Britain. And then later, that was the beneficence of Henry VI, and he caused and founded Eton for the benefit of 70 poor scholars. I was a poor scholar. Later on, after a brief whack in the army national service, I went on a scholarship to Trinity, Cambridge, founded again by Henry VIII for the benefit of future education. I was totally educated, changed, and made into the person I am by some of the best education in the world as a poor scholar. I went to America on the slippery slope from Harvard to Hollywood during the 50s and 60s. I was incredibly lucky because I was with the Beats in San Francisco and the hippies. And I also was in the revolution of 1968 of the students against Vietnam and all. I was technically an American historian. I taught at 4 universities. But the point was, I was at a time in America when it was changing the way it totally thought. Everyone was moving from the country to the city. Everyone was getting engaged. The climacteric, of course, was the war in Vietnam. And what had been a beat hippie society, which became the baby boomers, changed into a political society, the war against Vietnam. And I could not have been at a more interesting time in the totally change of a culture in America. The other thing it did for me was to question every assumption I had about British culture too. I've written far too many books because I can't stop writing. They are all sorts of things, from film scripts, opera scripts, poetry, novels, biography, every sort of thing you can think about. About 35 of them being published internationally. I can't stop writing, really, because I don't know what to do any day. I have to live in a world of imagination or creation. I have to find out wonderful women and families who will actually put up with me. The problem with the trade is it's totally solitary. You have to have all this peace in life. You have to have all this withdrawal. You have to have time to think about your imagination. You can't take digital intrusions. But you have to have this peace and thought and time if you want to be a writer. I always loved Dylan Thomas. I'm a romantic. He was the romantic voice of our post-war generation. He wrote a dozen great poems, quite immortal, which will go on forever. You see them written on gravestones in Wales, and death shall have no dominion. Do not go gentle into this good night. These are lines which reverberate through living and dying through your skull. Cannot get away. He was the great romantic poet of our generation. I never got through a night without his voice speaking to me. By incredible good luck with my early film career, I did the impossible. I optioned Under Milkwood to make into a film. And incredibly, I got the 3 big stars. Odds are about 1,000 to 1 against. Anyway, I made a film. It turned out to be a classic film, but that I was only an enabler, because the words were Dylan. Dylan made the film, as far as I'm concerned. I merely made it happen. You can't tell when you make a film, when magic descends upon you. It's a process. You don't know. I was incredibly lucky. I had the breadth of Welsh acting. I was very fortunate with acting with Richard Burton, because I'd been a Cambridge Don, and he always really wanted to be an Oxford Don. So he loved me. The person who hated me was Elizabeth Taylor. She loathed me because she hated him being an intellectual, because she wasn't very bright. And O'Toole also loved me because early days. Curious enough, my first little novel at Cambridge, Tony Richardson wanted to put it on at the Royal Court. And with a huge cast, Julian Moore did the lyrics, John Addison did the music, Kenneth Macmillan did the choreography. These were the early days of the court. And he was to play the lead before he was a star. And that is the secret of life. You've got to know a star before they are a star. He came and visited me at Cambridge. And he was so extraordinary with Sean Phillips. And so extraordinary, we were making a racket at 2 a.m. outside a college. A copper came up and he said to O'Toole, "You're making a racket," to which O'Toole stopped him, and he actually made the copper drink beer out of his helmet. And that's how charismatic O'Toole was. I used to, a long time ago, create film sets. And every frame in a film set is carefully composed. And those film sets became the way I composed my boxes. Equally, 50 years ago, I came across the first film boxes. In the 1910s, surreal artists, they made the boxes as they were. And then came along Joseph Cornell, the supreme master of film boxes. And he taught me, he became my inspiration. And I even have an old box made in 1903. And from them, from the surreal artists, from collage experts like Matisse, I reconstructed these boxes, which in a way were like my lost film sets. I bought from the bouquinistes in Paris You could do this after the last World War. I bought from them the papeterie of the 1910s and alls, and the surreal postcards, and all the things which inspired the French surrealists in the 20s and 30s. So I had this huge collection. If you spend 8 years out of 20 in a foreign country, the United States, you question everything you were told. This began at Cambridge with me, with my great tutor called Gallagher. Gallagher said, everything you know, Andrew, about what you know is wrong. That what one has to do is to take your society as a historian, which I was, a social historian. What you have to do is to question everything about it. Because in the end, if you are a historian, you are a referee. You've got to look at everything you know from other eyes. And I always change one maxim, and this is it. I say, satisfaction or complacency killed the cat. Curiosity brought it back, and I remain infinitely curious.